Hello student, welcome to this special government class. In this class, remember that one thing that distinguishes modern democracy is the use of elections to elect leaders and representatives and even to make vital decisions. So in this topic, we are going to look at elections and suffrage. Specifically, we are going to discuss the meaning of elections, the types of elections, the purpose of elections, the meaning of suffrage, the meaning of franchise, and we talk about the types of franchise and suffrage, the merits and the demerits. So let's move on. Now, what is election? Election is defined as a democratic process by which people choose their leaders or representatives through voting. So we say a democratic process because it takes place within the context of democracy, because it is only in a democratic context that you talk about elections. And because it is a process, it's not just one-off thing that just happened now. It's something that takes stages and processes. And in election, what people do is to make decisions, to choose between alternatives. And what they're choosing, they are either choosing leaders or making decisions by the process of voting. So voting makes election different from other methods of choosing. So it's a democratic process by which people choose the leaders or representatives by voting. You can see the picture, somebody is voting there. Now let's look at the types of elections. We have different types of elections. And by the time we discuss them, you can narrow it down to your country to know the time being practiced in your country. Number one is what we call direct election. And what is a direct election? It's a type of election where the electorates vote their representatives themselves. What we mean is this: on the election day, the electorate, the voters, go and vote by themselves, their leaders. Example, if you come to Nigeria during an election, everybody will come out and vote for leader, for their candidates. That is a direct election. Nobody votes for you. In indirect election, what happens here, that's the second type of election, is the opposite of direct election. Here, the electorate elect a group of electors called electoral college, who will elect representatives on their behalf. So electorates elect group of people, and this group of people in turn elect people on their behalf. That is what happens in this type of election. So the group of people that are elected here to vote on behalf of the people that elected them is what we call electoral college. So at times you can see in a question where they ask the electoral college is the form of, because the answer is indirect election. Now let's look at the next type of election, that is by-election. What is a by-election? This is an election held to fill a vacant seat in the parliament at the death, disqualification, or resignation of a member of the House. So this election in question, by-election, holds for only members of the legislature. And when it is done is whenever there is a vacant seat on the parliament, that is somebody, a member of the parliament died. And of course, when a member of the parliament dies, it means that the constituency he represents does not have representatives. And in that case, there should be an election to fill that vacant seat. That's a by-election. Or the person resigns. Or maybe for court case, disqualifies the person and orders for another election to fill that vacancy. So whenever you have such election that aims to fill a vacant seat at the parliament, you call it a by-election. Now we also have what we call run-off election or second ballot. There could be a situation where election is held and no person met the criteria to be declared the winner. Probably there's a tie, or probably you're doing a sole majority system and nobody has mustered that majority vote required, or in a case like Nigeria, where you have the person must win this, have this other one. There are many criteria, and the person did not meet it. When you have such case that no winner has emerged, you do a run-off election that will involve the two best, that's the two persons with the highest number of vote cast, to do another round of election. Here, a winner will now emerge. That is why we define it is an election that is conducted when no candidate wins in a general election. Let's look at primary election. What is a primary election? This is an election that is held within a political party for the emergence of the party's flag bearer or candidate. The contestants within the party, in order to be the candidate, are called aspirant. What do I mean? This election one is held within a political party, and the parties do that to choose who will become their flag bearer, that is their candidate in an election. Example, election is about to be held, and within a particular political party, 5 people want to be the president, run for the president under the platform of that party. What happens here? The 5 persons will go in for election, which only party members will elect them. What we call this type of election, this is what we call primary or election, or party primaries. So whenever you have primaries, we are talking about primary election that is held within a party to choose candidates that will flag their party. Now, we also have another type of election called referendum or plebiscite. Unlike other types of election, where people elect or vote for leaders or people, in this case, nobody is voted for, but rather this special election is held to make public decisions by the people. We define it as an election where people vote on public issues that affect their countries rather than people. So we are talking about a situation where, example, it was a time a country, let me not call the name, people organized the election just for the people to vote to decide the legality of same-sex marriage, whether the country is to have same-sex marriage or not. People voted. Such election where people vote to decide issue is a yes or no vote. The matter in question is proposed. People are to vote for yes or no. That is what we call referendum or plebiscite. In 1959, such election was conducted in Nigeria for northern and southern Cameroon to decide whether to join the Republic of Cameroon or remain in Nigeria. So that is what we call plebiscites, not to elect people but to make decisions. We also have general election. Example, in Nigeria, we know that every 4 years there will be an election. And what happens here is that the whole part of a country, election is going on. And it's an election where almost all members of the given political body are elected simultaneously. If you go to this state, they're electing governor. If you go to this state, they're electing their governor, members of the House of Representatives. At the same time, presidential election is a form of general election because everybody is up voting at the same time, simultaneously. That's the general election. Now, with the opposite of a general election is what we call staggered election. And what is a staggered election? It's an election where only some of the places in the state are up for an election. So the election is held in isolation from the other parts of the country. Example, Anambra State governorship election in Nigeria is staggered. It's held different from when others are holding. If you go to Edo State, the governorship election in Nigeria, Edo State and Nigeria governorship election is staggered. It's not held at the same time with any other election. Kogi State is the same thing, Imo State the same thing, Ekiti State is the same thing, and some other states. So this kind of election where a part is up for election, isolated from when others are having their election, is what we call a staggered election. In some countries like America, the members of the Congress are elected in a staggered process. It's not at the same time that every member of the parliament is elected. Okay, so these are the types of elections. Now let's look at the purpose or importance of elections. Why do we have elections? Number one, promotion of the practice of democracy. You can't talk about modern democracy without talking about election, because the modern democracy is representative in nature. Here people elect those that will represent them in government, so it's not direct. So election becomes a yardstick to measure democracy, so it promotes democracy. Two, decisions. It enables people to make decisions, or those that will rule or represent them. It gives people opportunity to decide people that will represent them in government and people that will rule them or govern them. Election is the platform that avails people with such opportunity. It also enables people to express public opinion. In election, what is being done is people express their opinion, and that is why when you talk about measurement of public opinion, election is one of the ways of measuring public opinion, because what people vote or what they have decided is actually their opinion, the expressed opinion or view of the people. Also, it confers authority or mandate. Now, it is when people elect a person that we say that authority or mandate has been given or conferred on that person to begin to act in a particular capacity. Example, if a person is elected as president, the person has been conferred with authority or mandate to begin to act as the president of the country. It also confers legitimacy on public officials and their actions. You know, when we talk about legitimacy, it has to do with acceptance and recognition of a person in authority. Now, it confers legitimacy by when people elect a person into power, the person is recognized and accepted by the people, and the actions of that person from that office is seen as legitimate. That is why there is this thing that happens when a president begins to make policies that actually affect people negatively. You see people saying, well, it's our fault we elected him, because they recognize him, that the actions are legitimate. Then another importance of election is it makes for accountability of public officials. It makes them to account, to give account of what they have done. And that is why during election periods, you normally see people, especially those going for re-election or those who want their party to be re-elected, you see them giving account what they have achieved, what they have done, how they have performed the previous administrations. That is accountability. They are telling you what they have done. You gave them power to do something, and accountability means they're being transparent, they're showing you what they're doing. It's election that enables this. Also, election enables easy change of government. There is no other recognized easy change, easy way of changing a government than election. Otherwise, you talk about coup that requires it to forcefully eject a person out of office. Also, it enables people to exercise their political sovereignty. In fact, in democracy, sovereignty belongs to the people. And the people mostly exercise this sovereignty during election, because it is an election that they now decide who is to be in power, who is to be in authority, who is to pilot the affairs of the society. Also, it's the best platform for choosing leaders. We use the election to choose leaders. It promotes political participation. During an election, people participate in different ways. Either they are contesting for election, they are voting, they are attending campaign rallies, they are debating about the candidates and political parties. People are attending rallies. So it's a best platform that gives people opportunity to politically participate or take part in political affairs of their state. Now, having discussed the election, let's look at what we call suffrage. Suffrage is the privilege or opportunity or right of a qualified citizen to vote, just the right to vote. While a related concept, franchise, means the right to vote and be voted for. That is what we mean by franchise. Now, let's look at qualifications for suffrage or franchise. How does a person qualify to be to vote and be voted for? Number one is that the person must be a citizen of that country. If that's the first qualification for franchise suffrage, they must be a citizen. It's a right that can only be exercised by citizens. Two, must be of age. Example, voting age in a country like Nigeria is 18. You must be 18 before you can vote or be voted for. And for elected offices, there are those that you have to be up to 30, 35, president is 40 before you. So age is the next one. 3, registration. You must be registered with the Electoral Commission. Age is not automatic qualification. If you're a citizen, it's not automatic that you vote or be voted for. If you're up to age, you may not vote or be voted for, but you must register with the Electoral Commission to vote. Also, sanity. Sanity, the person must be a person of sound mind, must not be mentally deranged or a lunatic. So you must be a person of sound mind to be voted for or even to vote. Also, education. This one applies to those contesting for election. You must meet the minimum educational qualification prescribed by the Constitution. Next one is membership of a political party, especially countries that don't do independent candidacy, like Nigeria and most countries of the world. You must belong to a political party before you can contest for election. Also, no criminal record. That is, you must not be an ex-convict. If you're an ex-convict, you cannot contest for election. This applies for those contesting for election. Then, you must not be declared bankrupt. Bankrupt is somebody who has been officially declared as unable to pay up his or her debt. So, if a person cannot pay his or her debt and has been officially declared by the courts, the person is declared to be bankrupt, and such a person cannot contest for election but can vote. Let's look at purpose of franchise. Why do we confer rights to vote and be voted for? Of course, it confers political rights on the people. But the chief political right is the right to vote and be voted for, and that is franchise. It grants citizens the opportunity to participate in the affairs of their state. When you grant them this right to vote and be voted for, they will participate in the affairs of their state by contesting for election, voting for election, and participating in other electoral activities. Also, it makes elections to be democratic. You know, when people are contesting, or when people exercise their voting rights, election becomes democratic. Because when you talk about the election being democratic, free and fair, you talk about did people come out to vote? Or were people given free hand to contest? Also, it enables legitimacy to be conferred on elected public officials. This happens when people are given that right to exercise their franchise. Then let's talk about types of franchise. One, we have what we call limited or restricted franchise. What does it mean? It is a type of franchise where the right to vote and be voted for is restrictive. That is, people are restricted, and it is based on some criteria like sex. In some countries, they do it based on sex. Example, some Arabian countries, especially some Muslim states, do not allow women to participate in the electoral process like voting or contesting for election. In the past, they did status. It must be up to a particular status to exercise franchise. It could be property. You must be somebody of landed property or wealthy. Must have acquired property. Example, Nigeria first constitution of 1922 made it that you must worth annual income of £100 per annum to exercise franchise. Age, we have talked about age. Some restricted based on race, where you see racism. There is restricted franchise there. Education, some will say, okay, until you qualify. It does educationally up to this level. Also, some non-secular states that states that support a particular or have official religion can restrict it to their religion. You must be a member of a particular religion before you can vote. Then let's look at why do some countries prefer limited or restricted franchise. One, it enables only people who are informed and have sound mind to vote. Only those that are informed, especially when they do education and status. You know, people that are educated and of high status, they are informed. The elites. So they want only those that are educated and of sound mind to vote. It also enables people with enough resources to contest. That is, you won't have a godfather that will now decide to use you in office to make profit. So it gives those who have the resources to contest. Then it is less violence because you don't have everybody, you don't have crowd in the polling stations. So it reduces the tendency of violence. Also, the demerits now, why it is not popular, is it denies people their rights, their voting rights. Because voting is a right. It's a fundamental right of a citizen. So it denies people their right. Also, it's undemocratic because here we don't talk about popular opinion. Majority opinion is neglected. We now talk about the opinion of the few elites. Also, it is criticized for being limited, for there is a limited political education, as many people are excluded from voting and even being voted for. Then the government may not have the mandate of the majority of the people because many people are restricted from participating. Also, there is limited political participation because most of the citizens may be restricted from participating. So it limits political participation. Also, it can lead to political apathy. That is, lack of interest in political affairs of the state is one of the criticisms against limited franchise. Now, let's talk about the next type of franchise, what we call unlimited franchise or universal adult suffrage. Unlimited franchise or universal adult suffrage. What is this all about? This is a type of franchise where all qualified adults have the right to vote and be voted for. That is what we call unlimited franchise. So there is no form of restriction. The only restriction here is age, citizenship, registration. These are the only, all qualified adults are given the right to vote and be voted for. And the merits why it is more popular is that everybody has that political equality. That is, equality of votes is given to all adults. It promotes political equality, and it promotes full participation of citizens because everybody is involved in the election process of their country. This is adjudged to be more democratic because it promotes participation. It enables everybody to exercise his or her voting rights. This method also avoids all forms of discrimination. It does not discriminate based on age, based on status. It does not discriminate based on race, based on sex. It does not discriminate based on property. So there is no form of discrimination here. Also, it makes a stable government because it gives people opportunity to exercise their voting rights that decide who their government is. Also, this unlimited franchise promotes national consciousness and patriotism. That is, we're talking about a situation where people develop interest, feelings about their nation. People want to be part of the affairs of their nation. People develop consciousness, are eager to be educated, to know more about the activities of their country or things, issues affecting their country. So it promotes national consciousness. It reduces corruption tendencies in election because it is more difficult to rig an election when people participate in their numbers. Also, elected representatives through universal adult suffrage reflect popular choice because majority of the citizens participated in the election, and whoever that is elected reflect popular choice of the people. What are the demerits of unlimited franchise. Number one, there is emphasis on quantity over quality of votes. What do we mean by here? Illiterates are allowed to vote to determine the fate of a country. Drunkards who are still illiterate, ignorance, are there to vote. People who are not enlightened, who don't understand the matter, who don't even know about the candidates they are voting for, the pedigree about the candidate, who don't bother about the pedigree, about the past antecedents of the parties in question, are coming out to vote. And some people even at times can decide to vote because they saw a fine person in the picture. They said they vote for this person. They don't care. So emphasis here is on quantity. Let people, not actually quality of those voting. So we are talking about quantity of votes, not the quality of votes here. Also, the illiterates and ignorants are allowed to vote blindly. There are places you go, you wonder what's happening. You see somebody could not speak English or standard language. He's even asking what he will do in an election. You begin to wonder, why has this person come here? And somebody will be the person to say, yeah, operate here. These are the things that play out when you see everybody, all adults, get out and vote. Also, most of the voters do not scrutinize the candidates as a result of illiteracy and lack of political awareness. Many voters, like I've said, are not interested in the candidates. Maybe they can decide to vote because they have collected something during campaigns. They can also have decided to vote for a candidate because they have been convinced by the supporters, or they have been given something. So they do not actually scrutinize because of illiteracy and ignorance. Then, because we are talking about all qualified adults come out and vote, there is disorderliness and violence during the election. At times, because we are talking about voters, unenlightened people, you see jumping of queues during the election, you see fight, you see hitting of chairs during election day. So at times it causes chaos and disorderliness during election. Also, unqualified represented by majority of illiterate voters. You see, when you have majority of ignorant people electing, of course you have unqualified people in the government. Because people that are electing them are people who did not scrutinize them, who do not understand the issue of what it means or the problems of the country, and the person that has addressed through campaigns what better ways to address the problems of the country. Then, government produced may be mediocre in outlook, because we're talking about here a government produced by unrepresentative, that is people that are illiterate and ignorant. Okay, now let's look at our exam guide SSCE and look at some questions related to the topic we just treated. Now, remember how we do here is to select the year I'm taking at random, then select number of questions, topic of interest. I'll look for the topic related to what I taught. I'm talking about the electoral system, meaning and processes. This is the related topic, not electoral management body, not electoral system types. It's a different topic. This is the topic, okay, taken. Now I'll go to get started. Now we are going to look at question related to what we did. Now we did this. This question says, franchise is the right to A, express political views, B, control the government, C, vote and be voted for, D, ensure good governance. The answer is franchise is the right to vote and be voted for, not ensure good governance, the right to vote and be voted for. An indirect election, remember we did indirect election, takes place when A, election is conducted for seats in the legislature, B, voting is by proxy, C, election result is decided by the judiciary, D, elected representatives vote on behalf of the electorate. That is what we call indirect election, when people vote for those that we vote on their behalf. That vote electoral representatives. Remember, I told you they are called electoral college. The purposes of An election which involves the use of electoral college is related to what we just answered. Is A, a runoff election, B, a general election, C, an open balloting, D, an indirect election. The answer is an indirect election. It's in indirect election that we talk about electoral college. That, remember, electoral college is a group of elected representatives for the purpose of electing people on behalf of those that elected them. On which of the following grounds can a citizen abstain from voting? What can make a person not to vote? We are talking about political party here. Of course, we have religion, education, wealth, status. People cannot abstain from voting because of their status. People cannot decide not to vote because of their wealth. People don't do it because of their education, but some people can decide for religious reasons not to vote. The right of citizens to vote and be voted for in an election is called A, indirect election. No. Remember, that was the election where people elect representatives to vote on their behalf. B, nomination. C, general election. D, franchise. The answer is franchise. Okay. An electoral college refers to A, training school for electoral officers. B, medium for indirect elections. C, means of educating the electorates. D, place where public opinion is formed. That is means of educating. No, the answer is medium of indirect election. You know, electoral college takes place within the context of indirect election. Thank you for being part of this class. You can now go and do your own practice.